All right, good morning, good morning. How's everybody doing today? I hope that today is a better day for you. I hope that you're waking up with a sense of understanding, a sense of feeling loved, a sense of knowing how important you are. And so it's 9:29. We have about 60 seconds. So I figure maybe in these 60 seconds I'll tell you a little story. If you were with us yesterday, we went over the 3 different parts of the brain. We went over the reptilian brain, which in a nutshell just makes us identify if something is gonna, if it's death or no death. It literally only knows how to respond to stimulus. It cannot even think for itself. It's connected to your central nervous system through your stem, so whenever change happens, it always affects you from that reptilian brain first that is not even aware of whatever comes next. So what comes next is the mammalian brain, which I've drawn here on the little circle, the blue circle, to represent that it has its ability to break down feelings. It has an ability to see if maybe something is sad or see if something is angry, kind of like, just go through that breakdown. It also gives mother their instinctual love. It gives us social connections, that togetherness, that bonding. This is the second brain that evolved. So to recap, the reptilian brain is the oldest brain that we have. And it was the brain that, we used literally for survival. And over time, the mammalian brain, which I'm pretty sure probably came more or less around that same time, simply because we needed emotional context. We needed to be able to separate certain things, but back then it was very physiological. It was eat, sleep, recreate, and protect. Really, those are the kind of 4 or 5 emotional dispositions we needed. Now, 30, 40, maybe even 100,000 years in the future, or however old the first human is, I think it's like 40,000 years old, we over time have developed this neocortex, and that's from all the transformation of rocks into spears, and from spears into houses, and from housing to thinking more, maybe looking at the stars and trying to find a connection with who we are and trying to really develop those ideas. And so our neocortex, which has other parts of it, really started evolving, and it starts growing at the rate that we grow. So just remember, our brain is ready and willing to stretch itself to the capacity of your imagination and your will and your inspiration and your enthusiasm for its needs, because it's here for you. Everything about your life is here for you. Your brain, your heart, all of that. So, how did we get here today? So I'll tell you this little quick story. So, as many of you know, I'm a music producer. I started producing music very early. I was about, maybe 12 to 15. And this is maybe in about, the year 2000. And I started, producing for a lot of, famous people and stuff like that. And my approach for music was always to sit down with this lack of understanding. I knew that I felt strongly, whatever I was going through, whether it was a breakup, whether it's my parents going through something, or me fighting with somebody, or getting a disagreement, or me being sad, or fighting with my brother, or with my sister, or with my friends, and we're all going through that because you guys have families just like I do. So over time, it just became a lot. So what I would do, I would sit down and I wouldn't know what I was feeling. I never really knew. And that's kind of what the reptilian brain does. Like, it just, you got something there, but you don't really know what it is. And it's until I started expressing myself through the music that over time, over 40,000 hours that I've spent in the process of music creation, I'm now able to break down that process to create creative emotional intelligence. So that I can explain to you just this moment right now. So here we have 2 different wheels. The center wheel is, we can't really know what's going on there because that's the reptilian brain. The second wheel is the mammalian brain, which has the feelings. And then the third is kind of like how we get to separate. It's kind of like the layers. So let's do this. Let's add some layers, right? Because over here we might have this one, and we might have this one for whatever this is, right? So we don't know what this is for this, and we don't know what this is. Maybe you have these layers here, and more layers there. We don't know what this is, right? More layers, more layers, more layers, more layers, and we kind of don't know what that is. We know that it's there simply because, we know the basics. We know sadness and we know anger and things of that nature. But if we look at the Corona emotional complex, let's look at it, right? So, before all this stuff started, everybody's life was predictable. There was no big change. I could go to work. I knew how to do everything. So, cool. So we'll call this one, here, joy. And in joy, I felt control. And that made me feel good. That's one of the layers of that, right? And so that was great. And then all of a sudden we started hearing about this coronavirus. And this is kind of where all of the stuff happens. Is we have another emotion, and it's called surprise. And surprise can take us in one or two directions. It could be a good surprise or a bad surprise, right? Like if you throw a birthday party for someone, they're like, wow, this is amazing. This is a great surprise. But if it's coronavirus, it's like Squidward, giving you a birthday cake, like, here, SpongeBob. That's not a very nice surprise, right? And so that's what we went through. So in surprise, we can either, it could be good or it could be bad. And we need to know that because that's kind of where this little guy on the inside is trying to figure out, but he doesn't know. He's just concerned with death or no death. He's just concerned with survival and staying alive. Can't even think for himself. He's just freaking out all the time. So, we've developed these other brains to do that. So we went through that surprise, and in this surprise, there was just a lot of confusion. Now, confusion, it distorts everything. It makes, what was once yes, maybe now it's a no. What was once up, now it's down. When the stock markets were up, now it's down. When I could go outside, now I can't go outside. When I could hug my friends and I could feel love and belonging, now I don't know if I can do that. That uncertainty, remember, if you've been following us for the last couple of days, uncertainty actually creates fear because of the change. So now we're dealing with another one. So here it is. So this confusion creates uncertainty, and that's from fear. And in fear, we will find overwhelm. Because now we're just going through all of this stuff, and in this overwhelm, you might have something more like maybe even anxiety. You might be going through who knows what, right? But it's not just fear, or it's not just joy. And some of us didn't even know that there was such a thing as surprise, right? Like as a core mammalian representation of an inner emotional sensation, right? You're following me? And so from this fear, we have this confusion, and now we don't want to change. Like, isn't it the worst when you have plans, and especially for the ladies, right? Because they're so good at planning things, and they plan everything kind of methodical, and then like your boyfriend or something calls you, and he's like, no, babe, I don't want to do that. How do you feel? That sucks. Let's just be honest. That sucks. That's not a good feeling because that's making me angry. Like, I kind of hate the fact that I have to change, right? And that's a very strong word, but let's just be clear because we need to do that right now. So now we're going into anger. And anger has hate. And it has a bunch of other stuff, right? And also, let's just kind of add a little context here. Anger also has hurt. So, if at that point she's screaming at the guy and the guy's like, babe, I'm just not feeling good. But she's thinking about her plans and the hate because now she doesn't want to change her plans because she loves her plans. She's attached to the plans. But he's now hurt. But hurt is also an anger. So there's no solution here. And we're not going to talk about, men and women, and we're not going to talk about how this can all happen because we're talking about the Corona emotional complex. But that's important because we're all men and women, all of us, and we all have a dichotomy of relationships that is as vast as the stars in the sky. So let's continue. So this coronavirus comes, all this fear and all this overwhelm, and now we're angry literally because we don't want to change. We had our plans, and then Corona comes and changes everything, and we don't want to do that, right? And based on that, now we step into another place, which is called disgust. And disgust is where the judgment lives and the disapproval. So now this disgust is attaching itself to the anger that came from us not wanting to change because we had our plans and everything was great. But obviously that came before the fear, from the overwhelm, from the surprise or the confusion, from the moment that we were, the first headline news, coronavirus kills 5 people. Now we're like, is that good, bad? Is that here? Am I safe? Am I not safe? So we go back to that core central feeling of, am I safe? Am I okay? Am I safe? Am I okay? And that's important to take note of that. So as we continue, from this disgust and from this judgment, we disapprove. We disapprove when someone wants to come in and change what is, and now we're judging it. So as you can see, there are so many little different layers that affect everything that we're going through, right? And ultimately, we have sadness, which is probably where most of us find ourselves right now, which is we're just bored. Boredom is in sadness. Indifferent is in sadness. Apathy is in sadness. Depressed is in sadness. And sadly, because life is just not working for us in the way that we want for it to be currently working for us, that's kind of what we're going through. And now we get to decide what we do with this moment, right? With this moment of great feeling, of great deep feeling. And so my challenge to you, or my encouragement, or what I would hope, or how I can help you, is hopefully if you got to see the video from yesterday, breaking down the brain, now you can see its attempts at trying to do it, but most of us don't even know. Look at all these other layers that are empty. But it doesn't mean life hasn't given us an opportunity to fill them. And so it's very difficult to actually make something meaningful, for us to feel like we're living meaningful lives, when we don't even know what we're feeling. Like we just have no clue. We've never taken a class on creative emotional intelligence. And so this is an example of why it's so important, why we need to actually now change constantly, because if life on the outside is going to constantly change, we need to change with it on the inside, so that we're staying safe and we're able to tell our reptilian and mammalian brain, no, this is what you're going through, this is what's happening, this is what I went through, and this is something you do for yourself. This has nothing to do with your children yet, this has nothing to do with anybody else, because each of us is in charge and is responsible for our own lives. In your own life, if you are not well, other people that you care about can't be well either. And so I would leave you with that notion that if you love your children, and if you love your community, and if you have a passion for learning, and even if you don't, maybe learning is something you don't like to do because you don't like change, you kind of like to stay who you've been your whole life, but life as we know it is changing. I almost beg you and I plead with you to reconsider coming with us on this journey as you continue to do. So we'll continue to talk about why this is important and start giving you guys the tools so that you can start practicing the techniques, and little by little we become a creative, emotionally intelligent nation. That is my theory of relativity. That is my hope for you, to transform your worst days into your best. So that we can teach you, we can go through how to transform feelings to freedom. And this freedom is fortune, it's liberty, it's everything you deserve. It's why you're alive. And I'm walking with you, I'm here with you, even if I can't be there in person, but I'm with you in spirit, I'm with you, encouraging you, and I believe that we can do this together. We can transform all of this stuff into something positive. So I hope this was informative. I hope you guys got to see a little bit more about how we can break down the anatomy of the brain into a practical application. Because I think that really helps us move forward. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you tomorrow, 9:30 in the morning. Take care.